Clearly, my brain is knitting a lot faster than my hands possibly can, but that's okay because we're having a good time. All right, let's try to do like the color analysis people do. I thought that the combination would be good, but it honestly shocked me by just how good it wound up being. Do I look better in this gray? This gray? Oh my gosh, I literally need to have this done in 2 weeks, or this gray. I do have a little bit of a new cast on too that I totally forgot about. You tell me. I know. I have a lot of deadlines. I've lost my mind. I'm having fun. I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits. Hello there. I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode today. If you're new here, like I said, I'm Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I am approaching my 2-year anniversary of knitting as we get into the end of this year. And over here on my channel, I just really love to talk about all the projects that I am working on, as well as how they fit into my theme, which is that the imperfections are what makes something so perfectly handmade. I'm really passionate about not taking the craft too seriously and just really enjoying the making process and finding all of the little things in there that make it so fun and trying to remove any stress from it. So if that feels like something that you can get on board with, I definitely do recommend that you come hang out with us more often. I post a podcast video just like the one you're about to watch every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, if things look a little bit different today, it's actually because I'm filming at night. Well, it's, we set the clocks back, so it's not as late as it kind of feels, but I do typically film in the mornings. And today I was on a mission to hit a checkpoint on a project. So I decided to just push filming until later in the day so that I could work on it. I will talk about that a little bit later, but just so if you notice it looks a little different over here. Anyway, I'm going to be talking to you about a few WIPs that I have today. No finished objects. I have an exciting acquisition. And I think with all that, we should just go ahead and dive on in. Going in order from the projects that have been on the needles the longest that I've worked on over the past week to the newer ones, we can go ahead and start with the Grayling Sweater, which is my 2024 holiday dress. This is a cabled sweater by Magdalena Parker, and I am going to be modifying this to knit it into a sort of midi maxi length sweater dress. I also am knitting mine out of a blown yarn, which is not what the pattern recommends, but the really chunky prominent cables do totally hold up to this more fuzzy, blurry, less definition type yarn. The one that I'm using is Knit Picks Wonder Fluff in the colorway Espresso Heather. And I have been working on this kind of on and off. I did give it a little bit more attention over the past week than I kind of intended to, but I just got really into it. So let me show you where we're at. There truly is no good way to show this off, but here we have it. So what you are looking at is the back. The back panel of this drop shoulder style sweater. And then I have picked up and finished knitting to the point where she tells you to stop to, you're going to join in the front to create the sort of crew neck. So I've finished that part on the left shoulder, and then I've literally just picked up but have yet to knit on then the right shoulder. So the way this is done is you cast on like the back of the neck, and then you do increases to create this sort of trapezoid shape that sits on the back. And then you can choose to either go in and pick up stitches for the shoulders or to cast them on separately and then sew them on later. The difference being, she says in the pattern, that if you cast it on separately and then sew it on, you're going to see a more prominent seam the way that you would in a store-bought sweater. And that also does give you the advantage of a little bit more structurally sound because that seam would add a little bit more stability than just going in and picking up stitches. But this yarn is so lightweight and it's so fuzzy that I felt like the seam wasn't going to be part of like a nice design feature for my version of this sweater dress. And so I had no problem just going ahead and picking up the stitches. It was just going to be easier and quicker. And so that was what I did. Now, I will definitely have to make sure to get some B-roll of this because I did take the time to carefully pick up those stitches, and the right here is where they were picked up. So it was really important to pick up stitches in such a way that the cables were going to line up from the front to the back, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. I think you can kind of see, so right here is where that seam is, and then the cables on the back kind of pull this way, and then the cables on the front are kind of coming out this way a little bit more. So they meet at a little bit of a corner, but for the most part, they do line up really neatly. And that's just one of those satisfying things. One of the reasons I really love Magdalena Parker designs is that she notices those little things where, you know, all of those stitches line up, and she explains it really nicely in the pattern on how to make sure you do that. So yes, at this point, I've just picked up the right shoulder and I'll have to get that part knit. And then the next sort of interruption is where the kind of base of the crew neck sits on this one. And then those two front pieces are joined, at which point you knit the two front pieces down until the underarm. And at that point, everything is joined in the round. So when I'm working on this, it moves so quickly. It weighs just about nothing. This is being worked up on 5.5 millimeter or US 9 needles. And so it's just such a quick knit. And right now, this is one that when I was just working on the back panel flat, it was to the point where I didn't need to have the pattern right in front of me. So it moved pretty quickly when I was working on it this week. But yeah, so I just have to get this kind of front shoulder, right shoulder done, and to the point where I could connect those two front pieces before it becomes a little bit more mindless again. And that's just something that I'm waiting for a time where I could sit down and pay attention to the pattern to make sure I do all of that just right, because you're increasing and decreasing and just, you know, making all of this shaping for the neckline. Now, speaking of the neckline, as I am intending to knit this into a dress, I have yet to decide if I want to keep the collar the way it's written in the pattern. She does have a folded over 1x1 ribbed collar on this, and I do like the way that that looks, but I'm also considering doing even more of maybe like a funnel neck or even a full turtleneck. I really haven't decided yet. So that'll be fun to play around with. I think I will start entertaining that idea later than I typically would, just so that I can get a better visual. You know, will it feel funny if this goes all the way down to my ankles and then also up to my chin? And I've been looking at different references. So if you have advice on either way to go for any other reason than just aesthetics, I'd like to know what you're thinking, because I'm very 50-50 right now. So anyway, this is the Grayling Sweater by Magdalena Parker. It's been on my needles for 19 days today, and I think that it's going to wind up falling to the wayside just a little bit over the next week while I work more on the next project I'll be telling you about. So that is the Grayling Sweater for now, my 2024 holiday dress. We'll see exactly what holiday it winds up being worn for. Okay, so the next project is the one that I was dedicating all of today to. And it's really because I did kind of set it aside over the week while I was focusing more on the grayling. It's just one of those things it requires so much attention, and I did not have the attention to give it over the week. So today I was like, I have to hit my next checkpoint because this is a serious deadline knit. And as I'm filming, I really would like this to be done in 2 weeks. And you're going to be shocked then when you see what I have and what I don't have, but we're going to do our best to make it happen. So this is the Poet's cardigan based on the pattern that Allison Schmidt has written up for her own, which is based on the Taylor Swift Tortured Poets Department cardigan. And then this is my own adaptation to modify Allison Schmidt's version to make a larger size, because hers is a free pattern on just how she had made the cardigan for herself to her own dimensions that she's kindly sharing with other people who would like to knit this. So I had to change all the numbers around to make this work for a larger size, and in doing so, made design choices to better represent what I wanted to see in this cardigan. And I'm so excited because today I have finished the front panels. Let me pull it out and we'll talk more about it. Somehow this is going to be even more difficult to show you than the Grayling was. So clearly this is a cardigan that is knit in pieces. If you've knit the Folklore cardigan by Lion Brand, you could definitely see the themes between that construction and the one that Allison Schmidt has put together. So I'm knitting mine in Lion Brand Wool Ease. That's a wool acrylic blend yarn. I'm loving the yarn so far. I'm knitting it on 5mm needles. And as of today, I've just finished the front 2 panels in their entirety. And I've been working on this for 6 days, although I'll tell you that everything that you're seeing is really more a combination of about 3 to 4 days of knitting, because I did take a couple days away from it. So I'm trying to just kind of hang it over here on Miss Helena the Hanga so that I could kind of show you a little bit better, but I don't know how well that's working. So I used a provisional cast on for my version of this Poets cardigan. The reason being, I just prefer the way that my ribbing looks when I can do an Italian bind off versus an Italian cast on. And it just removes one layer of kind of getting this bottom up piece together cardigan started. For me, it's a lot easier to just come back and knit the ribbing after. That was what I had done also with my cousin's Folklore cardigan that I knit for her earlier this year. So I'm just kind of taking from that experience what I liked and didn't like and trying to apply it to this scenario too. So that was the first modification that I made. Now, the second one is that I've added a lot of stitches in the body versus Allison Schmidt's version. I think when I'm done, I'm going to try to create just the most thorough notes on Ravelry possible, so that if you're looking to recreate my version of her cardigan, you'll be able to do so. But basically, in increasing the stitch counts, I did that by referencing the original Taylor Swift cardigan, and I noticed that the cable size from the Taylor Swift version to Allison's versions, they were just a little bit different, and it worked to my favor because the Taylor Swift cardigan looked like it had chunkier, kind of wider cables than what Allison had written. So I replaced the cables that she had, I think, with all of them except for the 6-stitch flat braid that you see, and then the diamond. I didn't touch those at all, but all of the other cables that you're seeing, I increased the stitch counts of them. So that was the next modification that I had made, and I'm really happy with the way that that all looks. Now, the other thing, this was something that it just kind of boiled down to circumstance. For starters, you work kind of from the bottom up in just a flat panel, and then when you hit the underarm, you bind off stitches. And I was referencing Allison's pattern at that point. I wound up having to bind off more stitches just because I was basically trying to bind off a full cable there. But I don't think that it's going to factor in too much to the rest of like trying to figure out the rest of this pattern, because I'm just figuring this out as I go at this point. Then as you work your way up from there, of course, you're creating decreases to create the V-neck shape of the cardigan. Now, the Taylor Swift version, I actually had some gripes with from day one, because clearly these are machine knit. And I'm guessing that from size to size, they just added additional reverse stockinette to the top of the cardigan, and they never actually adjusted or fit the whole diamond cable situation to each size. So to me, it looks like they just took whatever the smallest size was, like however much diamond and cable they would need to do to accommodate that size. They then just matched that on every cardigan after it, and then just added more rows of reverse stockinette. And to me, it just looked kind of random and a little bit like blocky and printed on. Then I could see that Allison's Allison's version, she definitely saw the same thing and was like, that's not happening, because she does have those diamond cables going all the way up to the shoulder seam, which I so appreciated. But then there's this other factor from the Taylor Swift version to Allison's version, where these cables in the front, in Allison's, she's tapered all of those off, and so you've like decreased your way out of those cables, whereas the Taylor Swift version, they do go up a little bit higher. And for me, aesthetics wise, I just preferred the look of them kind of being the thing that traveled all the way up. Now, I did not plan anything. I just got to those decreases today and figured I'm going to do whatever seems right. So the first thing that I did was I decreased out the 6-stitch flat braid. I'm going to take this off now. Maybe it'll be easier to show this. And I'll just hold up the one panel. It's pretty much a mirror image on both sides. So when I say the 6-stitch flat braid, they're curling so badly. I'm talking about this chunkier cable right here. So I decreased that out first. In hindsight, I do wish that I had done that differently, but I'm okay with the way that it looks, especially because it does end right around the point where it becomes the V-neck. I think it kind of just looks like it's stopping where that's going to wind up like turning across the bust. I'm fine with it, but I would have actually, in hindsight, started decreasing from within the reverse stockinette that you see next to the diamond. I think this negative space is a little bit much, and that was the thing that I really liked about the Taylor Swift version, is that they did have these cables kind of feeding into and eating away at the negative space of the reverse stockinette. And I do wish that with mine, I would have continued that 6-stitch flat braid a little bit more and then started eating into the reverse stockinette. But it also was just one of those things, if I had planned it way ahead of time, I probably could have figured that out as far as where the diamonds needed to start and the decreases needed to start. But all in all, I'm fine with what wound up happening. So I decreased out that flat braid, and then from there, I did start eating into the reverse stockinette on the diamond. And then just at the very top, I had to make some choices of what did I want to be the more prominent piece. Did I want it to be the 2 cables that run from bottom to top, or did I want it to be the diamond? And for me, the diamond was the overarching important factor. It also calls back to the Taylor Swift version of this cardigan. And so I wound up persisting and making the diamond my priority, while I then started to kind of just eat into the skinnier cables on this front piece. So I'm really thrilled with the way that that all looks. I think the only thing is just, it does feel like this dead space, it could have been a little bit more cohesive if I kept that flat braid going just a little bit longer. But all in all, by the time you're seeing all of this anyway, it's going to wind up sitting pretty high. And so it's really not the end of the world. Now, the other thing that, so when, with this being a pieced cardigan and these front panels, which also I knit 2 at a time, the top is done the same way that they do in the folklore cardigan. And I believe that this is called stair stepping. Am I right in saying that? Where basically you would just kind of bind off a set of stitches and then knit a row, and then bind off a set of stitches and then knit a row. And the way that that then kind of plays out, it creates that effect of short rows where you're having this outermost side, it sits the lowest, and then the inside sits the highest, because this has a further distance to travel, right? It has to reach all the way back over the shoulder, whereas this little bit, it just has to sit right on top of the shoulder here because we have the shoulder slope. So the front part has to be a little bit taller to reach back further. This was a feature in the folklore cardigan, so I was familiar with it, and it surprised me how much I didn't have a problem with it in that whole folklore cardigan process. I thought that the way that it then seamed to the back wound up looking really clean and tidy, and you never saw that sort of stair step in the end. So I was fine to just make myself, make my job easy and stick to the pattern as far as the stair step. I just, again, kind of changed the stitch counts because I do have more stitches on my panel than she does. So I just changed the amount of stitches to, again, I was kind of eyeballing it and made sure for the first one, I didn't dive into the diamond yet. And then for the second one, I kind of hit around halfway on the diamond. The third one, I didn't interrupt the diamond again. And then for the very last one, I just knocked off the rest of the stitches that I had there. So the cool thing is that this whole time I've been going based on my math, based on my gauge swatch that I had done, based on Allison's math to see if this was going to fit properly. My sister and I are about the same size. She's a bit shorter than I am, but otherwise we're pretty much the same dress size. And I laid this out on top of a cardigan that I have knit previously that I really like the fit of. It's a bit oversized and boxy. And this one, I'm telling you, it lined up perfectly. And I really do want this to be an oversized cozy sweater for her. I did ask her if she preferred it, if she wanted it to be a little more cropped or a little bit on the longer side, and she said on the longer side. So as it is right now, when I put these flat panels up on top of my corsage cardigan, that's what I'm referencing, it sits like literally perfectly fits that whole front panel, which means that by the time I've added the ribbing at the bottom of this Poet's cardigan, it's going to wind up being that perfect, like cozy, oversized length because my corsage cardigan hits me right at my like natural hip. So for it to just go a little bit past for my sister, it'll be something she could wear with leggings and that sort of thing, just a little more cozy, which is exactly what I think she was hoping for. I hope she was wanting for. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really proud of this. I did spend a good chunk of time working on this today, but I just kept saying like, oh my gosh, I literally need to have this done in 2 weeks. And I was ignoring it since I filmed last. And so I kind of just pedaled to the metal today, spent the whole day working on it and getting to this point. And now my next step here is that I have to now sort of write up the modifications and everything that I'm going to be doing for the back panel. And it is my goal to have that done by the next time I sit down to film. And then hope some miracle works out that I could then do the sleeves as well as all of the ribbing and then the next week that I would have. I'm going to dedicate as much time to this as I can. That's why I was saying the Grayling sweater, I think, is going to sit on the back burner because, over the past week, I've had this on the needles and I've been like, oh yeah, I'll work on it when I can. And now I would like to just really try and put a lot of my attention towards this. And the good news is I really enjoyed the process of making it. This might come as a surprise, but I really don't mind a seamed cardigan. I really don't. Honestly, it makes this so manageable when you have these like bite-sized pieces that you have to get done instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I have to work through this entire yoke and then picking up sleeves and now you're carrying around this bulky thing. It's so nice to just have little panels and say, okay, today I gotta get a panel done. It makes it very attainable. And all of the cables, the all over cables with this makes it really engaging and it does wind up going by way more quickly than you would think. I've just been listening to a good audiobook and chugging along on this. The only downside is that I really need to be sitting down with a pattern. And by the pattern, I do mean these spreadsheets that I have written up for this, which again, I'll probably just try to include in the notes in my Ravelry projects page if you would like to also recreate this cardigan at these dimensions, which I always list my measurements are always in the description box. So you'll have an idea of what size this is going to be when it's all said and done. But yeah, I'm really, really thrilled with it. I also saw a few comments last week complimenting the gray of this yarn. It is a really beautiful color. I think it's called Oxford Gray. And it's actually, I'll compare it if you'd like to my corsage cardigan. I have this sitting here because I was, like I said, using it as a sort of reference for this size. This is Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the colorway Oatmeal. And already you could probably tell it's a way lighter shade of gray. And it's also more of a grayish. After now having this for about a year, I feel like this color is maybe not the most flattering for me, but I do still get a ton of wear out of this. And then this gray is way darker and more steely gray, way more cool toned, even, dare I say, like the littlest bit of a periwinkly purpley blue color, which is going to look amazing on my sister. She has blue eyes, and I think that with her even more fair skin than I have, this is going to look really, really I think this color is like way in her palette. It's going to look amazing, amazing, amazing on her. But I do also think in the future, I would like to knit something more in this shade of gray for myself, because I think that this is even, yeah, like this or this. Let's see. Should we do like the color thing? All right, let's try to do like the color analysis people do. Okay. Do I look better in this gray, this gray, this gray, or this gray? You tell me. Anyway, so that's where we're at with this. At the moment, I have these front panels kind of tied together because I did the provisional cast on, and since I knit them 2 at a time, I just did that provisional cast on across one try-it-on tubing. And yeah, so they're attached right now. So yes, the next step is going to be to write up the pattern for the back panel here, which I'm going to do again kind of just by referencing both Allison's version, Taylor's version, and then I will do my best to knock out that back panel in the week. I'm hoping, from my experience with the folklore, the back panel wound up surprising me. I think just because it was one entity, whereas this has been, you know, okay, cross off that side, cross off the right side, cross off the left side, make sure I have my left side yarn, my right side yarn. And it's a lot of just kind of management involved with the front panel pieces. So I think that the back panel should go by just a little bit quicker because it should just be a little bit more of a smooth process, which means that I shouldn't have an issue getting that done in the next week. And hopefully even more than that. Maybe I could even do the ribbing on the bottom and then go into the sleeves. And I'm thinking for the sleeves, I may try and knit them by picking up stitches and then knitting down the sleeve. I haven't totally figured out yet because that would be a big brain activity. So undecided, jury's out there, but the front panels are done. It's been on the needles for 6 days, and I'm honestly just so proud that I was able to figure this out. This is the most modification I've ever done. Truly, the only parts of the pattern that I've been following were the diamond and that flat braid, and then I've just been referencing kind of what did she do, but let me do it for my numbers, and did I like that? Did I not like that? Let me shift the way that this moves here. So it's been a lot of figuring things out on my own, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And I think it does look really, really nice. Also, what color buttons do we think? I think my sister asked for them to not be black. I'm gonna see maybe if I could find a like charcoal gray tortoiseshell type, probably similar to what I did for the folklore cardigan, but maybe even a little bit lighter if I can figure that out. So let me know if you have any thoughts. Anyway, that's my Poets cardigan by Allison Schmidt. Heavily modified. I actually have 2 more projects to tell you about because I do have a little bit of a new cast on too that I totally forgot about. The next WIP that you have seen before is the Yoga Winter Sweater by KNITS, and I am knitting mine in Barocco Ultra Wool in my favorite color of the moment, which is why you've seen it already in the Grayling sweater, but it's just this dark chocolate brown. And this one is also knit on 5mm needles, which is a fun theme we have going right now. So here we have this winter yoga winter sweater. Let me figure it out. Okay, so this is I have to mark this all out, right? Yes. Okay, so I'm looking at the back, you're looking at the front. I do think I could maybe put this onto Helena. Okay, just kidding. I would need to put this onto some try-it-on tubing, and I'm not ready to do that just yet. So I will kind of try to hold it up. I mean, it's a raglan. This does start with casting on and then working this really fun, long 2x2 ribbed, super high turtleneck. And then moving into the raglans, there's some short row shaping. And this is what I was talking about last week. And I think that based on some of the comments, maybe I wasn't totally clear. So this piece that you're seeing here, this is my beginning of round from my cast on. And then I followed the instructions for everything. And when I got to these short rows, which are on the back of the sweater to raise the back of the neck, the beginning of round is like on the front of the sweater. And so is this tail, but then the short rows are on the back. And the way that they were written, the short rows, does this make sense? So now the beginning of round isn't on the back of the sweater. It's very possible that I just messed something up and didn't read that right, but that's how it turned out for me. So I'm going to have to be very precious when weaving in my tail here. And yeah, I don't know if that was just a me thing. Did I mess this up? If you've knit this, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I followed the pattern, my short rows have wound up on the back, and then my beginning of round is kind of on the front, which is just a little bit frustrating. Anyway, this has been a really just constant for me over the past week because it is the most mindless thing. I kind of forgot how mindless it was to just knit a raglan sweater, as I really hadn't knit one in quite a while. So I've been really happy to have this as my mindless knitting, but still be kind of working towards a new sweater for the winter, even though this wasn't at all in my fall knitting plans. It just was something that I was able to cast on, and so I did. Now, to be totally honest, I kind of even don't remember what the next step was in the pattern. I just figured I was working these raglan increases, and at some point it would look like I was at a good place to stop and go check the pattern. So I definitely will do that today. I know that at where it is right now, it's certainly not just yet deep enough for the underarm, but I will definitely read the pattern again today to make sure that I am not going too far with this one. I haven't mentioned sizes of anything, have I? The Grayling was the size 4, and this I'm knitting in the size extra large. Now, the funny thing that I did notice is that I totally forgot that when I bought this yarn, I knew this when I bought it, I actually have 2 separate dye lots. So if I'm not mistaken, I had 4 balls in one dye lot and then 3 balls in another. So far, I've used the same 2 dye lots for this part of things. And then my thought is that once I get to the body, so separating for sleeves and everything with the raglan, and then I'm just knitting in the round for the body for a little bit before we do this really fun split hem detail, I think I will try to do some helical knitting to work in one of the other dye lots to hopefully mitigate any sort of like color blocking that might happen, but also without, it's a raglan, so you can't just kind of do the sleeves with one. I think my goal will be, I've so far used a full ball of one dye lot. I'm working on the second of that one. When I'm getting to the end of this, hopefully that means that we've already split for the body, and then I can start working in the second dye lot and then save the other balls of yarn to start like the sleeves with and kind of try to work that way. But yes, it's just something that I remembered I have to be mindful of. So I'm thinking that'll be the easiest way to do it. Just kind of do a few rows of helical knitting towards the end of a ball while working in another, and hopefully there won't be too much difference. But I really don't have much to say about it. This has been on the needles for 5 days. It was one of those things I just cast on at the last minute, and it's just been my kind of reliable in the round knitting since. So yeah, that's all I've got for this one. The Yoga Winter Sweater by Rook Knits on the needles for 5 days. Although I do think next week we could probably try this on. I like to try on my raglans kind of as soon as I've split for the sleeves to make sure that things are working out then. I'll probably have time behind the scenes to try it on before that, just so that I know I'm splitting at the right time. But then, yeah, once we get kind of few rows into after splitting for the sleeves, we'll try it on one more time before we just really dive into the rest of the body. That is the Yoga Winter Sweater. Okay, so now I do have a new cast on. Totally forgot about it, but I am really exciting to be starting some gift knitting. I have some gift knitting that I'd like to get done in the next few weeks. And I was racking my brain. I was telling you guys I was interested in doing this on just some kind of quick and easy, small, tangible gift knits that I could whip up with yarn that was in the stash and things like that. And then I remembered that my friend Jennifer from Pairs Well with Knitting came out with a pattern earlier this year called her favorite fingerless mittens. And they just looked like the perfect thing to cast on and kind of get done in a pinch. Now, I'm not an accessories knitter typically, so I also didn't have a very clear frame of reference of how long it would take me to knit up something like this. But I went to my stash, I pulled some yarn, and I just got started. Now, let me show you what I have. I have one finished and I'm working on the other one now. Here is the finished little mitten. Now, like I said, my friend Jennifer from Pairs Well with Knitting, she wrote this pattern and she actually gifted me a copy. She had gifted some copies as prizes earlier in the year. So we're very grateful to Jennifer for that. But as someone who really hasn't knit accessories, I kind of just had no idea what I was getting myself into when I opened it up. She has written this for multiple different weights and sizes and gauges. And so I figured perfect, right? Because I wasn't going to gauge swatch for a mitten, but I figured I could kind of get started and use her pattern as a guide. And that was exactly what I did. So these I knit sort of in the worsted weight category and in the smallest size category, knowing that my gauge was probably going to be just a little bit bigger because I believe she tells you to use 4mm needles for that category. And I used 4.5mm needles. I also was using a worsted weight wool plus a mohair, both from my stash. And so I figured I was going to get that little bit extra sort of bulk in the gauge. And I'm happy to say that they're fitting really perfectly. Now, okay, yarn. The wool, I don't know what it is. I had purchased it at some point at a thrift store without a label, but it's this really lovely sort of tonal periwinkle with lighter sky blues and whites almost even worked in there, as well as just more like deep, kind of on the border of purple. It's a really, really, really beautiful color. And I decided to hold this with a yarn that was gifted to me earlier this year by a lovely subscriber. So this is the Barocco Aerial Color Mohair. So it's a mohair and silk combo. And this has a would you call this variegated? It sort of has that color shiftingness to it where this has blue, lilac, periwinkle, baby pink, as well as these fun little pops of like gold and green, a sagey sort of spring green. And I thought that the combination would be good, but it honestly shocked me by just how good it wound up being. I mean, it's just this such a perfect wash of different colors. It literally looks like a watercolor painting. It's so beautiful. It's really soft with the mohair on it. And the way that this little mitt works is that it's like a cuff for your hands. So it has the thumb hole, but then it doesn't have there's no bells or whistles. So what a perfect pattern for gift knitting, especially because it does have all the different sizes in there. I went through my stash and just dug out a yarn for each person I was hoping to gift these for. And they all were kind of in that worsted to bulky category, especially because I wanted this to be so quick. So I feel like my grounds are covered as far as, and it's stitch counts and it's little instructions and little things here and there that just make it one less thing for me to think about right now. So I loved having this pattern on standby for this exactly. Now, okay, when it comes to small circumference knitting, you may or may not know, I'm not a sock knitter. I don't do this. I don't love it so much, if I'm very honest. So I forgot about that when I cast this on. I decided to start by casting on using Magic Loop. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's basically just a way of knitting smaller circumference. So if you don't have like circular needles that can match the whole circumference of your knitting, you could do Magic Loop, which means that you are using a long cable. And kind of knitting the stitches, you're dividing then the stitches across the two needles. So you would have like the front and the back on the front and back needle. And then using one working needle at a time, you would knit across the stitches and then kind of shift things around to knit across the other side. That sounds more confusing than it is, but understand that if you've never done it, if you've heard that magic loop thing, it's not difficult. For me, I just don't like it. To me, it's almost nauseating. I almost feel car sick when I'm doing it. I don't know why. There's something about pulling out the needle and spinning things around, and it's a lot of motion and movement that it literally, when I first cast it on, it literally was making me feel sick. Which was disappointing because I thought this would be a fun little thing to just bang out in a few hours and we'd see how it went. So immediately I went and I ordered a pair of 9-inch shorty circular needles in that 4.5 millimeter. I wound up ordering the Addy Turbos. I've just heard good things, and I figured if I'm going to order a pair of fixed needles, I might as well try something I haven't before. Those came in. I was so excited, and I went to go keep on knitting and hated them. I don't know how I was supposed to hold the needles were like this big, and you're just supposed to hold your little fingertips. And the way that I knit, I can't just hold it with my little itty bitty fingertips. So that didn't work either. Now I have a pair of DPNs that are like a longer size, and they're a 4 millimeter. And I do enjoy knitting with DPNs, but those are bamboo. And right now I'm just in a metal knitting needles kick kind of world, and the sound of the bamboo is literally, can't handle that. So I decided not to use those. I kept going with the magic loop. I wound up getting more comfortable with it, but it's still just not my favorite. So my question here is, should I try the flexi flip thingies? Those are basically, as far as I understand, like DPNs that just have like a flexi bit in the middle. So it's supposed to make it a little bit easier. I don't mind using DPNs. I kind of enjoy that process. I just didn't have a pair in this size. And I thought, if I'm going to go purchase another pair, should I entertain trying out the flexi flips? So if you have a positive experience with them, or negative, if you have any experience with them and you want to share, let us know, because I'm entertaining picking up a pair of those for the next pair that I make. And the only thing is that I'll be frustrated if I wind up having to pick up like multiple different pairs of needles again, when I feel like I just keep adding to my needle collection. And I know my boyfriend keeps saying, we need more needles. I thought you had all the needles that you needed. And it's like, man, I did too. I really thought I had everything that I needed. I don't know why I keep needing to get more needles, but here we are. So that's something that's brewing around. But I did wind up continuing on with the magic loop, and it's not impossible. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's just not my favorite. So here we have the second one going. Now I've been a little bit kind of just, again, winging it. You start by casting on where the knuckles are. I'm going to put this on in a second, but you start by casting on where the knuckles are and then knitting down to the thumb hole. Then you're knitting flat throughout the duration of that thumb hole and then working your way down again. I didn't do any row counting or anything. I kind of just went according to what was feeling like it was fitting on my hand. And then for the second one, I just was like, oh, I'm getting pretty close. Now let me count the rows and make sure I'm within a row of it. I don't think it's the end of the world. Let me know if that's wrong with me, but so that's where we're at with this one. Okay, let's talk about this one again. So again, I've knit mine in the worsted weight category in that smallest size with the hopes that it would fit kind of more like the medium size. I have pretty large hands as far as I know. I think they're pretty beefy, and I don't know the size hands of the people that I'm knitting these for. So I'm kind of just trying to go for something that could fit my hand, but maybe is a little more on the snug side, assuming that I do have bigger hands. And the only place I feel like I did go wrong is I did my bind off pretty tight. So the bind off is the part that goes down the wrist, and I can get these on without a problem. I just know for the next pair I make, I should be a bit more mindful about how tight or loosely I'm binding off, because it could be a little too snug if you think about it too much. But overall, super pleased with this. I think this is a fantastic little gift knit. Obviously, I have to weave in my ends here. I also think I could have maybe done another row in the thumb area. I think I went a little bit deep in the sort of like the finger department, and then a little shallow in the thumb. Personally, as I was trying it on as I went, I just liked the feeling of a little bit more cuff around the wrist. So I made mine just a little bit longer than Jennifer tells you to in the pattern. And then, yeah, the whole thing is just intended to be this like very simple thing. I like that the top was rolling a little bit. I thought that that looked quite nice. I made sure to cast on pretty loosely. So I kept thinking of, oh, maybe I should add ribbing, or maybe I should go back and add an I-cord. And then I had to stop and say, like, these are mohair. These are gift knits. Stop making more work for yourself. They look so, so cute the way that they are. And more than anything, I'm getting this yarn out of my stash. I'm picking colors that I think that the recipients would enjoy. So that's a really fun process for me. I love the part where I get to just like play around and pick out different colors. So my goal is to get a few of these done in the coming weeks. And based on the two so this one's done, the other one's kind of almost done. I think that they take me around 2 hours to make one, maybe more than that. Maybe I should have paid more attention. Maybe I'll time the next one I make. But yeah, I think also for the next one, I might try to just use a row counter so that I don't have to keep kind of going back and forth. I just really was winging it for the first one, but I think that they look really great. I think that the mohair makes it just look really fun. And I have plenty of room kind of in the hands, but it also doesn't feel like if you had a significantly smaller hand than I do, you would be like drowning in there. I just think it's very cute, and I'm very happy to make little accessories for people for gifts, especially because this is so out of the norm for me, but it seemed like something fun to do for gifting this year. So if you're looking for a little gifting knitting pattern, something quick, no frills, no bells, no whistles, but you could certainly add them if you wanted to, then I think that Jennifer's favorite Fingerless Mittens pattern is a great option, especially because it just does have all of those different sizes and everything. And even though it's something so simple, it was so nice to just read a pattern and have her tell me, what worked for her. And they are really fantastic. I think I will need a pair for myself. And so even that's fun to like think, which scraps can I put towards this? I did weigh my yarn before. I don't know that I weighed it after. I may have forgotten to weigh it after, but we'll see when it's all done how much yarn it actually used. I will make sure to make a note of it on Ravelry and stuff when these are all said and done. So those are the new cast on. I didn't even set a timer because these are literally just like a day project. And that's the thing. I'm just going to kind of try to crank one out here and there when I can. I know I have a lot of deadlines. I've lost my mind. I'm having fun. So those are all my projects right now. All the ones that I've been working on. Can you tell that I'm so thoroughly enjoying everything that I have on my needles? I'm having a good time. So that always feels really good. I know I have these deadlines that are probably stressing other people out, but I enjoy a deadline. I like working towards something. I like that little last minute pressure. It's fun for me. So anyway, I do have an exciting acquisition. When was the last time we found some good thrifted yarn? I know it's been a little bit, but I hit the jackpot yesterday, so allow me to share with you what I found. Good old Goodwill was on our side this week. This entire bag is full of yarn. 2 different kind of batches of yarn, let's call them. So let me bust out a couple. All right, let us start here. So there were, I believe I have a total of 7 of this exact color brand, and then 2 of the same brand, different color. Really, really fun stuff here. So these are 100% wool. They're that like roving that you see, right? Isn't that what they call that? The brand is, I think, Lina de Schaffhaus Viking. it says 100% virgin wool, and the 2 different colors, so the one that I have 7 of, it's honestly very similar to my Corsavin cardigan, just that kind of really lovely grayish color, and then I have 2 of the cream, and so that's enough, right, to make a sweater probably? If they are, do they even say? It says net weight 3.25 ounces. Is that what that's trying to say? But I actually don't think it says on here the yardage. Okay, no, it doesn't say the yardage anywhere, so I don't know exactly how much is on these. But anyway, I got each ball for $1. And when I was looking it up, it looks like maybe these would cost you around $5 or so a ball. So I have a total of 9 of them. So that was a really good deal. But the other thing that I found is arguably more exciting. Okay, so this was like honestly kind of funny because these look pretty much exactly like my Artemisia sweater. But this is a 100% alpaca yarn. It says 100% alpaca fleece. They say Indicita, natural color, not dyed, net weight 100 grams. Imported from Peru by Plymouth Yarn Co. Color 209. And then there were also, this one is probably the most disheveled, beat up looking one, but the same exact, the same alpaca, or at least other members of its family, made these 2 yarns. But from what I can tell, and I am no expert in this department, this one also says 100% alpaca fleece. This, though, looks like it has, I'm looking to see if this one has a weight listed on it. To me, this looks like a finer yarn, and this also has a looser ply to it, like a looser spin, and there's kind of 2 distinct strands that make up the spin on this one, whereas on this one, it's a little bit more of your standard looking like very ropey, or just very much more twisted kind of look. This looks very standard, normal skein of yarn to me. This one looks a little bit more interesting. Anyway, I think that I got 4 of these and 3 of these or something like that, also each $1. So I thought these would be great for accessories, especially in this gift knitting season. I was like, you know what? Let me grab them because I love this color. It's very OC, and so I'll put it to use somewhere. It's alpaca, so that's always a win. And for $1 a piece, why not play? From what I saw, again, looks like these could possibly run you like $12 to $15 a pop, and I got them for $1 each. So whatever it wound up being, I know that I spent about $22 at the store. So great price for really great yarn. And if nothing else, I think all of it would work really well for gift knits. I'm also like thinking of making those slippers and stuff. I don't know. Clearly, my brain is knitting a lot faster than my hands possibly can, but that's okay because we're having a good time. So yeah, I think that's everything I have. I really hope that next week I'm showing you the finished back panel to the Poet's cardigan. I really hope that I have finished a couple more pairs of those mittens. Those are going to be my top priority things. I think the Grayling's going to take a little bit of a backseat unless I could just dig out an hour or 2 somewhere to get the rest of that kind of shoulder done and get at least the front panel joined. That would make me feel good about that. And then the Raglan winter yoga cardigan sweater, not cardigan sweater, that is just there as my mindless knitting for right now. So yeah, before I go, I do want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed. We hit another really exciting milestone the other day. We are now at 12,000 subscribers, and I did share a post on Instagram just letting you all know really how much it means to me that you're here, that we're building this together, and just how grateful I am to have this space where I get to come and chat about my knitting and where you all join me and we get to chat together in the comments and stuff. And so I just want to make sure that I say a huge thank you for being here, for subscribing, for telling your friends, for showing up week after week. It's definitely just the coolest thing, and I never want to go a moment without letting you know how thankful I am to have you here. with that, feeling really good about everything. I'd love to know what you have on your needles right now. And otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, I would definitely appreciate it if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you subscribe and you ring the bell, you're going to be notified anytime I post a new video. However, I do post a new video every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. With all that being said, a big ol' thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, you guys. Bye. I never put my earrings on. Can you please pretend that I had these on the whole time? Thank you so much. I literally just finished filming and realized that I never put my earrings on, and they really made the whole look. So just pretend they've been here the whole time, okay? Let's do a quick thumbnail, yeah? Yay! I've been wearing my earrings the whole time. It's our secret, okay?